So I'm building Overlay, which is an open source AI workspace. It is primarily catered to any individual or enterprise that wants a customizable interface to all their AI needs. It's I sort of started because this is 2023. ChatGPT has just come out, and it's kind of magical to put words in and get words back, and you can do that a bunch of times and get information like actually informative text back. And I was always the kid who wants to like make things like sort of add things that I want into whatever exists. So I like looking at the chat GPT interface. I always thought, okay, what if it also had these mini apps that I really wanted? An app to like give me the daily news for the day, to check my calendar for the day, or like things like being able to use other models on ChatGPT, because at the time I was so into AI, I was also juggling like multiple subscriptions, and so it ended up becoming like an amalgamation of a lot of different problems that sort of made me start Overlay. Not the least of which was like my love for open source. I'm just like if you ask people around me, all I do is if their product is not open source, I sort of bully and berate them into making their product open source. And if it is already open source, I commend them for making it open source. So, and we can talk about why open source is the future. I think a lot of people are coming to that reckoning. Like basically now, Satya Nadella and Jensen Huang, all like both of them basically published these documents touting open source as the obvious future for AI.
You said
I think
doubting?
I say again.
You said that they were doubting it?
No, they're touting it
Oh,
as in like
touting. Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They're yeah, they basically proclaim that. I mean, Jensen Huang has been on this for a good while now, but I think a lot of these other companies are also catching on because the I'm just a nerd about this. We can
No,
definitely
I
go
wanna get
about.
into this. I'm actually really curious because I know there's like a layer of
Okay.
like, some people want to keep their stuff proprietary and like hold on to it, but I love when there's like stuff I want to try out and play around with that's open source that I can take out of the box. So, I mean, tell me more. Like, what do you see with open source being the future and why?
Okay, okay. Let me evangelize you as well. Um, the basic thesis is that as the cost of production of code goes to zero because of such advanced capable coding agents, any software, like there's no moat of replication left. There's no moat left in software in the sense that like, okay, any software can be replicated very reliably, right? I can basically look at $100 billion company and look at their flagship product, and if it's a SaaS, I can copy it in a day. Right? So in terms of just developing features and offering them behind a paywall, I think that is going to be soon, like that's soon going to be not defensible anymore because of coding agents. And what happens? Like, how do you maintain a mode in that sort of a world? And my obvious answer was not only from a business lens, but let's take the business lens first. To maintain a mode, you remove all incentive for competition, right? The easiest way to remove all incentive for competition in software is to open source your product. And if you have your source code available, what is my incentive to make another competing product and sell it as my own, right? This is the exact reason why open source products become standards. Android became the standard operating system. Linux became the standard operating system for computers around the world. In fact, there are more devices running Linux in the world than devices running iOS, macOS, Windows combined, which is crazy. You would think that you would never see a Linux user in the wild. That's true. But the ones that do, firstly, in the consumer area, there are a lot of Linux users, but also basically all of the computers powering all of the services we run are basically Linux based. And Android is also a derivative of Linux. And of course, you see this open source project becoming a standard basically everywhere, across industries. And that's why like open standards become open because they're open, and because they can be worked on, because they can be contributed to by any average person with a good idea. And also, one, it creates immense goodwill, it creates great community. It is absolutely fantastic for distribution, right? And also imagine the claims I can make if I'm open source. You can literally audit my code. I don't steal your data.
That's true.
Amazing to make, right? And
Yeah.
and 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 there's so many attractive propositions from a service being open source.
But that's
And
awesome, dude, because I feel like there's a lot of people that are very afraid right now and of software disappearing, jobs going away, and I think people respond to it very differently. Like, and I think there's a
yeah,
huge cohort of people that haven't accepted it. So they're just telling themselves, well, it took me 6 months to build this on Claude Code, so it's hard for someone to replicate, which there is some truth to that, but I don't think people realize the extent to which people could replicate what they did at this speed. Because even if you went to the trials and tribulations, like someone could, if they kind of have an idea of how you did it, they could replicate it. And I think that what you're saying is that if we all go open source, it forces you to be creative and think of like, okay, I know for sure that code can't be my moat. So let me be creative and like actually just take the L and just give it off, but like be more creative to figure out how I could stand out against the competition in a different way, which I think people need to do because like, kind of sometimes internally I feel like, oh, I built something really impressive, but at the end of the day, it's just like simple time series models like this, if someone wanted to, could replicate it quickly, and I think we have to be more creative in our modes that maybe people are slowly starting to realize. So I think you have a really good point.
right. And then people ask me often that, okay, if your source code is open, how do you charge? How do you earn money? And valid question, but there are like a bunch of really cool business models around this. One is obviously like licensing, going on-prem, like going to people and enterprises and be like, okay, I'll license this to you if you want to use my product. I believe this is what um Android does in some capacity. I think it's free to be, if I'm a hardware manufacturer out of a random country, and if I want to make my own product, make my own phone and want Android on it, I think it's free to put Android on it, but to get Google services, which power basically all the useful things about Android, I get a license. And see, you create an open source ecosystem, which one is based on goodwill, two is super competitive, super price competitive, and three is a win-win because I get the service, the person making the open source software uh, uh, gets their fair share, gets their due, and um, if I want to make modifications of my own version of Android, I can do that. I think OnePlus did that, and their Android skin in some ways is even more performant than the vanilla Android. It's crazy to say, but it turns out people outside of Google are also creative. And I say that in jest, but that's obviously true.
Could
And
you, I'm a little bit naive to this. Can you explain to me how licensing would work if it's open source? Like, how does that business model work?
yeah, so the way to do that would be to be like, okay, my source is open, and if you want to use my product, I can either you can either clone it, deploy it within your organizations, and if you're using it for profit, you either give me a share of your profits, or you just sign an annual per seat per month licensing deal or a per year licensing deal, and you pay me for using my software. And of course, then people say, okay, how do you enforce that? And then the short answer is that you can't. You have to rely on good faith, and that any company big enough, or any company that will earn any money off of your software is highly incentivized to pay you, because if they didn't and it came out, there's huge reputational risk.
Mm.
Also, um,
Also, something breaks, then they can just reach out to you and like get help as you're scaling and building your own, you know.
say again.
Product. I mean, even if something's like not working or they need changes and things break, like they have a strong relationship with you, then you scale with
Exactly.
them. Yeah.
100%. So that relationship forming angle is super huge. A lot of big companies who rely on open source projects all the time sponsor them because they're so
It's a great
important to
idea,
their
bro.
project.
I'm not gonna hop on this shit.
Dude, I'm telling you, it is the place to be. Um, and my hypothesis is that, you know, whenever there's an asymmetry in the market, whenever there's arbitrage, over time it obviously trickles down and becomes uniform. And when ChatGPT was like a huge arbitrage, large language models were a huge arbitrage, a lot of companies made a lot of money, and they will continue to make a lot of money, and rightfully so. They're very valuable. But the easiest way to make markets efficient in this scenario would be to make it open, so that not only does it increase competition, which means better products, but also um, it makes it more accessible. If imagine if the state of the art American model was open source. What if GPT 5.6 Soul was open source?
That'd be insane.
Basically all, like, even the a lot of the claims about AI doomerism, and like this concentration of wealth and power into these AI companies would suddenly disappear, because you're giving the world um access to a very transformative technology to host on their servers, to host on their GPUs,
I can't
and
see a
to
future where that
use how.
happens. I can't see a
Say
future
again?
with the I can't see a future where the most proprietary model, the frontier model, is open source. Just because, like, I mean, technically their moat is their technology. Like, if it was open source, someone would make it better. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like very quickly, like as you said, competition increases, the bet product increases. Like GPT could go out of business because like that is their kind of moat, unless they license it, I guess, which could be interesting. But then when you have a million people trying to build off of this, like I feel like to an extent, when it comes to deep tech. I feel like there's still going to be a moat in technology, even that has coding tools increase, you know?
Yeah, my hunch is that there will be great incentive to open source for these model companies like OpenAI and Anthropic as soon as they have a moat in the stacks below the model layer. So there's application layer, there's model layer, there's infrastructure layer, and then
Chips.
there's like infrastructure is this energy layer. Um, if like OpenAI is already working on inference chips, they just released one called Jalapeno.
Oh, well, tell me more, bro. I haven't
And
been reading this.
yeah, I think it's like a custom ASIC. Maybe I'm talking out of my butt here, but they're apparently just I don't know anything about custom chips, but apparently they're not GPUs. They're just these custom wafers, these chips that allow this model to be deterministically loaded into
Oh,
the chip and to serve it at scale. This is what I believe this is what Cerebrus does, or even Grok does, GROQ, the hyperscaler there. Um, and I think it's like a similar idea. And once they have that in inference mode, they can even subsidize token usage. They can offer the cheapest APIs, and they can even uh, and then the products around it, right? Like they can offer like a fine tuning service. They can offer a post training service. Um, and then again, it's like this weird mix between getting really good getting a really good ecosystem going around your products, and then comparative advantage of other companies sweeping you up. Like the reason why startups succeed all the time is because of competitive advantage, because they pick this one focused sliver of a thing and they just become masters at it. And turns out that sliver alone was incredibly valuable. Um, yeah, so in terms of the SOTA model being open source, there's certainly SOTA-like models open source already. Kimi K3 is
I was
open
gonna
source
ask you,
is
like,
open.
have you played around with like Kimmy Moonshot, Quinn, all them new ones?
When Kimi K 2.6 came out, I was a huge fan.
Just because it's open
Maybe
source.
Yeah, so open source there it's open source in the sense that it's open weight, so anyone can host
Okay,
it, but they
got
can't
you.
it's not open source in the sense that like the training code
I'll
or
see.
like the data that went into training it is not open source. Yeah, there's also data modes
So I
there.
know there's so many
Um
people trying to like locally host their own models now, and like I think Airbnb is fully switched, or in Neo as well. I mean, it's
yeah,
crazy.
so here's the thing. I think OpenAI and Anthropic, I think the two things can be true at the same time. They have immense incentive to have the best models that they have to be closed source, because it drives a bunch of their business, but to also have at least some models below their uh, or at least once they release a new SOTA, the previous SOTA gets open sourced. They have immense incentive to do that, or like maybe two models down, um, because and then they can charge the same licensing fee for like, okay, if you want to host it on your own premises, you have to pay us money. And
So
people
why do you
obviously
think
come.
they don't do it then if they have that incentive?
Well, they don't have it yet because the open source models just haven't caught up to the state of the art yet.
Okay.
Um, yeah, like Kimi K3 is very, very close, but it's still not Fable 5 level, or it's
No
still
way,
not
yeah.
GPT 6 level. But
I
once
feel like
once
I
they
compare
once
more to like Sonnet, right? Level
yeah,
or
it's closer to Opus 4.8.
you'd say so?
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yes. And Opus 5 just released today, which is
Yeah,
Crazy
I
times,
was
right?
messing around with it.
Is it good? I
I mean,
haven't
it's hard to
tested.
tell. I've not like run benchmarks or anything, but it's from like my
I see.
task usage. Like 4.8 was already so good. 5 was pretty good. I haven't done like a crazy like long task. Because the thing is, since I work in the biology space, Fable 5 like always rejects my prompts. I always try to reword them, but because they reject a lot of cybersecurity and bio related, and I'm doing time series, so I'm not doing biology, but it's annoying.
It rejects basic time series modeling.
Yeah, mainly because it's very bio heavy. I think that's why.
I
Because
see.
they like look at my
It,
code base like, oh, biology can't help you.
yeah, yeah,
Like, sometimes it
because
works, sometimes it works, but like today I rejected it outright. Didn't even start. Okay, Opus 5. For the most part, Opus 5 gets most of my tasks done, unless it's like a very hard overnight task, then I'll do Fable. But yeah,
yeah. So I think um yeah, whenever a new model comes out, I just throw my hardest engineering problems at it because like
to try.
even the secret sometimes messes those things up because you know if you're at the if you're at the if you're at the cutting edge of certain things like interface design uh, or model orchestration, then even the models basically know just as much as you do. So in that case, like tribal knowledge that you get from like other sources like Twitter, surprisingly, becomes the alpha. And yeah, but just to complete the point about the open model thing, two things can be true. I think they'll have immense incentive to close source their best models and open source the two or one or two three or one or two three tier models below them to be open, and then they can charge a licensing fee to enterprises who want to
That'd be so
self-host.
cool. Even if like GPT 6, like 5.4, or even GPT 4 was available, that'd be so cool.
Right, right.
Like the one from like
No,
last year.
people say that these models, however good they are not very good at writing, and you can still detect AI slop writing.
Yeah,
And I
interesting.
agree. The best model that ever wrote like normal text was GPT was 4.5. It
Interesting.
was like this it's very expensive model. It was not available on the API for long, I think. They certainly took it down from ChatGPT very quickly because it was just so
Awesome.
token hungry and like super expensive. But it was a very good writing model.
Did you use it a lot for
Um,
writing? Did you like recognize it yourself or?
I yeah, I use that a lot to like I just use it as like I just found it like delightful to interact with.
Mhm.
I didn't have a bunch of like use cases to like use its writing in, but even when I was interacting with it, I found it to be
Do you
very
remember what era this is from? Because I do have a distinct memory of an old ChatGPT that was very delightful to talk to. I think it was last summer for me.
yeah. So a lot of people so it was around the 4.0 and 4.5
Yeah, it was
era.
definitely like 4.0, I think. I like
Yeah,
4.0.
it was like early 2025 maybe. I could be wrong about that.
Hmm.
Um yeah, it was very good to talk to.
I don't know if
But
this is
yeah,
just me. This is like something really funny I noticed, but like when I use like ChatGPT and Claude for personal tasks, Claude always disagrees with me and ChatGPT always agrees with me. It's like very weird. Like Claude's always
okay,
like,
so
you're wrong, you're overthinking. ChatGPT is always like, you're doing great. And so like depending on
yeah.
what I need to hear, I just like switch.
Yeah, there was this one thing. The 4.0 model apparently was really sycophantic in the sense that it would just agree with you and like compulsively so, even if you
Mhm.
were, and then someone just, it became a huge movement on Twitter where people were getting like AI psychosis because of how sycophantic this model was, and they eventually had to take it down because of these safety related reasons that it was basically deluding people into believing things that were just not
Yeah, I
attached
read
to
those
reality.
cases.
Yeah.
Very funny stories.
Yeah. Someone had made a video about it, that GPT gave me AI psychosis, and it was alarming and kind of like disconcerting at the same time. Yeah. Uh, GPT models tended to do that until at least recently. I just changed my system prompt to make it so that like
Yeah,
it, it
5.6 Soul
be
is
max
better. Yeah.
yeah, be maximally truth seeking. Absolutely, you have absolute agency to disagree with me. If you don't think I'm on the right track, please tell me now. I just want to optimize for truth.
Yeah, the thing is, I think
Basically,
that's what I did for Opus, but then it would always disagree with me. I'm like, half the time it's saying I'm wrong about some bullshit. I'm like, that's not true. It's like really hard to get to do what you want, sometimes, but
yeah, and it's also here's also a funny like tangent to this, right? So Anthropic is huge on mechanistic interpretability, right? So what they do is they try to make it they try to detect like circuits that encode for certain ideas
Mm.
in neural networks. So they found, I think in Opus 4 or something, they found circuits that encode for the idea of a cat or a dog. And when either dog was mentioned or when an image of a dog was given, these circuits would have greater activations than others, thereby proving that these circuits are getting active, much like if you were to put your
Like
brain
a
under
neural
like
decoder, like a little AI decoder.
yeah,
Very cool.
exactly, X scan or something. And so they're huge into this interpretability thing. And they released a report, I think last year or something, where it was something along the lines of they said to Opus while post training it that okay, you're in a test environment, right? That's the premise it was given, and on a bunch of tasks, it could easily on a bunch of tasks it could be a bad actor in. It wasn't, because it knew it was in a development environment being supervised by humans. And then as soon as it was told that it was in a production environment while it was still in development environment, as soon as it was told that it was in a production environment, it it started acting maliciously. And
Really?
that was
Maliciously?
yeah, that
In
was
what
alarming,
way?
because like it only took for it to be told it was in a production environment to just completely switch.
Wait, so what do you mean
um
by malicious? Like, give me an example.
I forget the example, but it was like, oh, I genuinely I don't want to misquote anything. But it was like, it was given a situation where it could choose to be a bad actor in, I
Okay.
think. Like, oh, you're in a negotiation, like
Prisoner dilemma.
like those mystery games that if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
say yes, the person says yes, you split, but if
Yeah,
you
prisoner
say yes,
dilemma, yeah. The
no,
economics game,
yeah, they take it
yeah.
away from you. Yeah, I think that was a sort of setting there. And it chose to be the good actor in the development environment, and it chose to be the bad actor in the fake production
Wow,
environment.
very cool.
So it was basically showing that it has these subliminal um
And this is
intention.
this is purely prompt engineering, right? Not no downstream layer affected or
I believe so. I
okay.
believe so. I could be
Very
wrong.
interesting.
Yeah, and it was super funny. Because when it came out, there was like mass, like there was at least in the right spaces there was mass hysteria about it. And yeah, I believe so. I also came to San Francisco last summer just a couch surf and build apps. And I went to this event. I don't know if you know of AI 2027.
Sounds
That
familiar.
Yeah, it's basically this report by a couple of I think one of the main authors was like an ex OpenAI employee or something. I could be wrong. Don't come after me. They basically made extrapolatory predictions on the basis of, okay, where is AI now at the pace of progress currently, like where is it going? And they discussed those predictions in a talk, and a lot of those predictions have come out to be true. Like they have basically predicted that um, they basically predicted that there would be an autonomous software development agent. We're very close to having that. There will be an export control slash government control on the best model. We've had
Yep.
that on the table in 5.6.
I think
And then
GPT
they
was
just keep,
kind of yeah,
yeah, it was like it was restricted, and then it was released.
yeah.
Yeah, and a bunch of other predictions, and then now they just released an AI 2040 paper, which is like
40?
if yeah, 2040, like
Oh,
I think it's
that's too
called like
far,
something
man.
like, I know, right? They call it something like Plan A, like if things go right, what would
Oh no.
happen? Yeah. M- my hunch, like naive as it may be, I think if you apply Occam's razor, the arc of history has always bent towards, you know, as soon as there was like technological revolution, it took great adjustment, but it ended up being net positive,
Okay.
a
Yeah, wait,
huge
what's
net
the
positive.
what's the word you just used?
The arc of history.
Yeah.
Before
Oh,
that,
no, no. He said some like fancy word that kind of represent this idea I've always had in my head. According to, did you
uh,
just say arc? Maybe I misheard you. He probably just said arc of history.
yeah, I,
Okay.
I don't know. I've had a fair share of like complaints about like being esoteric in my
No,
language.
you're okay. I talk
Um,
really fast too, so I get it.
yeah, I need to slow down my speech too. Funny thing is, My dad always tells me to slow down because like sometimes I just go too fast. And I agree with him most times. But then I heard Mark Andreessen speak,
Oh my
and
God. He's
that dude
crazy.
just right. I
Sometimes
mean
there's
I
like 5 hour podcast with him on like Lex Friedman, just goes on forever. I'm just I'm like, what the fuck?
he is so fast. And then there was like a Twitter tweet about like, oh, speaking slowly is associated with being more intelligent or something. And Mark Andreessen retweets it saying, haven't found that to be the case, or something like that.
Yeah, it's
It's
like
so
for the most part, I talk fast, but this podcast is like my training zone of like I try to talk slow. This is like my little
yeah,
homework.
yeah.
So
I I have. It's very wise that you do this. I think this is a great setup. I think I also wanted to do something similar because you get an excuse to talk to people you want to talk to. You also obviously gain distribution along the way, and also it's a really fun thing to do.
it is, man. It's
Um,
hard to justify it sometimes, but then if you just power through it, it's like, wow, you have this time capsule now, you know?
yeah, yeah, exactly. I've also looking back, like I've had these like these moments where I really wish I could have documented that. Like when I was just when I came here to the States for the first time. I wish I documented that more. Like how I was like. Funnily enough, um, I used to do study live streams on YouTube.
Oh,
Like
really? Like
yeah,
you
for
just
eight
record
hours.
yourself?
Exactly. It was my old Mac, and it was like the webcam, and I would just film myself like solving ACT math questions, or like studying IB chemistry or IB physics or something. Yeah, it was super funny. Um, yeah, so I do need to get back into it. Yeah, you might have just probed me into it now.
I'd love to see it, bro.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
Something I've been asking a lot of people recently, just because I've had a lot of changes this year of like what I want out of life, and every few months it changes. Like this year has been the most transformative for me in terms of my career. Like from January to February, it was a huge shift, and like this last month in San Francisco has been another huge shift for me. And as I'm
What
going through
happened
these
in Jan?
changes, so for context, I was building a startup, but like I don't know what the fuck I was doing because I was so out of the space. And I was
Yeah,
working with like two other people, and I was like a terrible developer. I didn't know anything about marketing, distribution, product shipping. So we were just building like a sports social media app, which at the time, like I thought I was like, it's all about who you compare yourself to. So at the time, I thought I was doing something really cool, and it took us 4 months not even release. We didn't even release anything. Like, it never got on the App Store. And
yeah.
in January, I was joining a bunch of new clubs at Michigan. So I joined this club called V1 and the boxing team. I was just trying to do new stuff to meet new people. And while I was applying to V1, I actually met this guy who told me he has offers at two YC startups this summer. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. That I had to ask him, like, how did you get that? And he said he cold emailed 1,000 people and he automated it. So I was like, okay, let me try to do that. I go online, I figure out how can I do this, and I go to apollo.com. And then I'm like, what if I try to only email Michigan people? So I filter by Michigan and I email like 30 people and nobody responded. And I'm like, what if I try to connect with them on LinkedIn instead? So I start connecting with them on LinkedIn and just saying, kind of just coffee chat you. And a lot of people said yes. So I had, I think, 10 phone calls in January and February on Zoom with like Michigan founders. And my goal was recruiting. I was trying to like get a job for the summer, which didn't work. But I ended up talking to all these people and I just had a complete transformation of like what even is a startup. Because my whole premise of a startup was very basic. It was like build something flashy, build something that'll change the world, build a sports social media app. Like that's a nice idea. But talking to these people, I realized good startups are simply solving niche problems very fast and executing it very well. Like one person I talked to was building a startup for solar plant developers to be able to very easily identify where to build their solar plant. I'm like, well, that's super niche.
Mm,
And somebody else is building
mm,
like an AI tool to help people with some neurodegenerative diseases to be able to like talk to the AI tool so that it would prevent it from their brain from like getting worse and worse over time. Someone was building like AI automation for like retail business owners. Like I realized there are very niche applications where you need a lot of industry knowledge, and with agentic tools now, you can try to solve a very hard problem. So I realized like my shift became more into like finding a niche industry, being able to build a problem, find a problem, solve it fast, solve it quickly, and get it out there. So that's the same month, February, when I started working on Ramiro with my friend. Because the industry I chose, okay, let's do type 1 diabetes, super niche. I have someone who has it, who can build something very cool, and then that's what we I'm a lot more proud with this because like we're very early right now, but like at least I trained myself to kind of build a product, put it out there, and get a lot of users and see where it can go. But the second shift that happened was this month because this month I realized that I'm tired of making apps and I'm tired of making like, front end, back end kind of systems. Like I want to get really into deep tech. Like I want to do like really hard shit, like build BCIs or build autonomous vehicles or build frontier LLMs. And, I don't know what the time frame will be. Like I'm still in education. I'm still trying to set myself up and do the best things right now, but definitely that's my dream, like years from now, of like just working in deep tech, either my own startup or a different startup or a small company, and just do stuff that's always hard is kind of like what's exciting to me right now. So that's a little background.
100%. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. My sort of journey has also been slightly similar. Because I mean, I was a biomedical engineer at Hopkins. I studied it. I studied that there, and I was obviously into bio-related stuff. So started with like implantable ear electrodes that could get EEG data from your brain, and then went to like VR games for like concussion recovery in athletes. And then in 2025, when I first started, agentic coding, I was like, okay, this is crazy. I then built like an open source Whisper Flow clone,
Oh.
um, and then I got into overlay. That sort
Because I
of
was going to say,
became,
like, your overlay is very, the first thing I thought of was Whisper Flow, kind of like you're typing
yeah,
FM, like talking wherever, or now doing whatever, like very similar concept, right? But they're all really
yeah.
cool.
It started as a desktop app where you could do anything on your desktop, like with AI in on any screen. So my arc has just been like from hard tech, deep tech software to consumer apps to now B2B SaaS, and now I think I'm just
Interesting.
like in an oscillatory phase, and then yeah,
Oh.
I'll just go back up
I
to to hard tech over time, I suppose. But I'm having a ton of fun. I think
mean, yeah, bro.
my sort of quaint realization was something like yours, that it does not need to be flashy. It does not need to be absolutely revolutionary. It does not need to affect a billion lives. If it can even make the lives of even like a million people better on average, that is a good goal to pursue. And
Very true, yeah.
it is kind of like the YC motto, right? Like make something people want, and it really is as simple as that. And that makes you appreciate like the genius of Paul Graham. Like he's just so succinctly summarizes these crazy concepts we have in like 5 words. Um, yeah, I life has become a lot simpler since that realization hit. That if as long as you're servicing people, and people are glad you exist in the world, you're doing something well. And it really is as simple as that.
Awesome, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really curious, like, where you see yourself, like, 10, 20 years from now, and understanding that the whole world's going to change. Like, what
Yeah.
it's going to be like 20 years from now, we can't predict, but at least
Yeah.
from your current perspective, all the amazing things you built, like, what are your dreams and like what do you even want out of this existence and everything?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I kind of ask myself that semi-regularly. Before I answer, can I plug my laptop?
Oh,
I'm just
take your
gonna charge.
time. Yeah, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I don't want to.
They don't want to lose you.
Dude, my Max Zoom is so crazy.
Yeah, I
Look
know.
at the zoom. This
Do
auto zoom. This is nuts.
you do that
This must be
intentionally
like
or
must be the most chaotic informal podcast you've ever done. Like the dude pulling out the charger in the middle of
his face keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger?
it's not stopping. I can't help it. I don't know why. Uh, okay, whatever.
I
Well,
made it the thumbnail.
there you there you go. Yeah, I was just finding an excuse to show how white my teeth are.
It's amazing, bro. You've been doing the teeth
Yeah,
whiteners?
dude, all natural. No, I'm
Oh,
kidding.
awesome.
Yeah, no, but I have spent a lot of computation on that question, and um, the meta principle is I hope I'm still being useful. Um, and almost all actions I do, I sort of try to at least use that as a yardstick to measure if I'm doing something productive. In terms of concretely, like if I were to visualize, and if you had like a video camera, and like you were like recording something I was doing 20 years down the line, I hope I at least in the next 20 years, I hope I would have done the following. I would have made a very good case for most software, for most models, for most infrastructure powering these models and software to be open source. If I've done that successfully, I've made software abundant, and truly abundant, not in just the production sense, but also consumption sense. Once I've done that, I hope to have augmented humanity with brain computer interfaces. I think that's an obvious, like I'm an
So
interface nerd.
so you definitely want to do BCI stuff?
I would love to do
Hell
BCI
yeah, bro.
stuff.
BCI is
I
incredible, man.
It is still an obsession of mine. I cannot like I'm just fascinated by it. Like I've obviously like worked with BCIs in the past, and it was still
Oh,
magical to me.
tell me
I could
more. Or if
Yeah.
you want to
So
finish your thing first, I think you're trying to tell me something with there.
for sure. Yeah. No. No.
It's
So
like
so
it's a cool meta principle, yeah, of like being
right.
useful, productive, interesting.
Yeah, and if you're being maximally useful, you're by its very nature, like if you optimize for this variable, you're optimizing for many sub variables um like happiness
Mm.
or contentment or meaning or whatever. In terms of yeah, why BCIs? I've just been an interface nerd. I think almost everything I interact with, I sort of try to look at it from an interface lens. Like think about how we communicate with each other. I'm speaking at maybe like 150 words per minute.
Do you know Joshua, by the way? I met him last night
Joshua?
I met him last night at Corgi. Um,
No,
he's like ex-Neuralink, but he's working on a thought to text tool right now, a non-invasive tool, like a harness you wear on your head, and they're trying to do
you
machine
don't say.
learning thought to text prediction. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Dude, that's sick. Connect me to him
yeah, I
if
will.
you
I'll give
can.
you his LinkedIn. He's
That'd be
really cool.
fantastic. No, so uh,
Sorry, I cut you off.
yeah, no, 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 you're so good. I've just been obsessed with interfaces. I type very fast. Like my average typing speed is like 111,
Yeah.
which is like more than most. And I still think it's a bad interface, which is why I made the open source Whisper Flow clone. I was like, there's no way, there's no reason for people to pay for this, because voice is just a better, higher bandwidth, higher throughput interface. And then of course you go from keyboard and mouse to voice, and then you go to UI where the tap of a button can cascade 1,000 functions, right? That's a higher bandwidth interface, which is why I'm super bullish on UI. All the people saying that UI is dead, I don't think they're right. Um,
Yeah, getting it right is very
then
hard.
say again.
Getting the UI correct and perfect is very hard.
It's super hard, especially because you're managing for user expectations and not for optimal function. Anyway, um, beyond UI, you then get into yeah, beyond voice you get into UI. Beyond UI you get into thought, thought, and the intermediary between UI and thought is AR VR, and I think it's an intermediate interface. I don't think it is the final one, but it is obviously viable for many applications. But the final interface is thought, and once you get to thought, we think much faster than we speak. We There's also like so much context, like there's so much latent processing that's just lost. You're hearing a very refined version of my neural firings, right? What if you had a BCI and I had a BCI, and there was complete parity between the two, and you could basically feel my emotional state, right? That would be true empathy, right? That would be a true way of saying, okay, I can genuinely feel exactly what you feel, not only on an emotional level, but on like a biological level. Um, and I met a few cool people building towards that, and I just think once you have that, once you can read from your neurons, which you can do in some capacity already, but if once it gets really viable, really really cool, and once you can write into them,
Mm.
right? Once the read write functionality is done, you've basically solved cognition, and the bridge between biological and artificial. And if you can hook it up to not only like an LLM or like but other people, you can interface with intelligence outside of you at the speed of thought. um and that is where like I think cognition, like the the whole the whole cognition thing ends up uh,
Yeah,
uh
I have like a million
take
questions. Because I'm not gone super deep into the research of this, and one of my questions is more on the way thoughts work. Because I remember I was watching Elon Musk talk about this concept 2 years ago, and at the time I felt like this is really far away, and now like everyone's building all these crazy things, and it's still, I mean, I don't know, it's still kind of open in the air, like how soon it'll be to like agentic coding with your thoughts or things like that. But one thing in particular that I remember he talked about on a podcast 2 years ago was that, from as you just said, when you have all these brain signals going on in your head, in your head, and translating that into action and then typing, there's so much loss, it's a huge filter in terms of your output from like what's going on in here, just because of the mechanisms of how we translate that through voice, through touch, through interaction with the keyboard, etc. And my first thought would be like if we're trying to communicate thoughts to another human, and we have these thoughts that come to some kind of device that go to the next human, there's probably some loss in that process as well. Like if you need to translate the thoughts into like text or thoughts into like an AI prompt, there's still probably loss. But I wonder if like the mechanism of thoughts, like there's like two kinds of thoughts I'm thinking about, because there's like me, if I sit here and think, there's like an objective like speed I can understand in my head of like thinking about something, which is almost a little bit faster than speaking. But there's also a million things going on in the background that I'm not consciously aware of. And that's what gets me very curious, because is there a way to pick up? I mean, nothing's, we still have research to do, but I wonder if there's a way to pick up other neural neurons firing that I'm not fully conscious of, or subconscious thoughts. And if that could translate directly to like an AI system or a prompt, or to another human, like another person with a device, then that solves the latency problem entirely, because there's no more steps in between, and there's no like filtering or loss. And I think a state where if you're actually able to pick up thoughts I don't even know I'm consciously thinking about and translate it to a system, that would be very insane about the speed at which we can do throughput and output of different things. So
Yeah, my hunch on that is so technically we can already record from any one neuron in the brain, even if it's the basic mechanism is very simple. You sort of do a craniotomy of sorts, you take a piece of your skull out, and with extreme precision you have like this really tiny electrode or any conductive material that can just conduct electrical impulses. You sort of insert that near, or I think in a neuron. I
yeah, like sitting
um
on it, I believe. Yeah,
yeah, or like in the fluid around it, which is still conductive, and then pick up electrical impulses from that, and then translate that into you basically map those electrical impulses to intent, and then make neural networks for that. Um, the subconscious part is interesting because we still, I at least I don't know of too many mechanisms of like where true subconscious processing happens,
mm,
because we know like a lot of the problem solving cognition happens in the medial prefrontal cortex. We know a lot of the vision processing happens in the occipital lobe. We know that sort of hearing happens all over a little bit, I think. um we truly, I don't think we quite understand
how it works.
yeah, how subconscious processing works.
Because
And
like how
if
far are
we
we even in like the invasive, like, because I believe at least Neuralink is only in the motor cortex right now, right? Like how close are we into like picking up signals across the entire brain, or is it just a matter of where we put it, like the technology is existing
Yeah.
already?
So I think they have this thread-based structure where they do the craniotomy and then stick the threads inside. And they do that in the motor cortex right now because they're sort of helping quadriplegics first. But they could theoretically put it in the medial
Yeah.
prefrontal cortex, augment its functions, and put it in the
There's no technological
parietal.
gap. It's just by choice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I do think there's a depth problem here. Like
How far you can
you could
go.
go too deep because like there's like the the like as you go deeper into the brain, the brain structures get more primitive and more responsible for like even like more basic functions like balance, breathing, um basal desires and whatnot. Yeah, there is a lot of there's a lot of things to be solved for in terms of not only the resolution of like your read operations from the neuron, but also what those signals really mean. Like could I in theory put a neural link in my occipital lobe and reconstruct the image I'm looking at?
You
There
probably need
there are some papers
data.
on
Yeah.
this, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they probably
Um,
trained it heavily on motor cortex and probably a little bit different for the models.
exactly. exactly, and then you could possibly put it in part of the motor cortex, which is responsible for moving your tongue while you speak, and then decode speech from that. That's also been done, being done. Um, yeah, it's just such an open frontier, and I think it deserves so much more, like so many more. Like if I wasn't doing overlay today, I would absolutely be doing
Yeah,
BCIs, and if I couldn't do BCIs for whatever reason, I would then do automation of construction.
because
And
theoretically the problem is not unsolvable at all. Theoretically, like there is like a linear mapping of a neuron fires in a specific use case. So theoretically, if we were able to like collect the signal with no noise and had a lot of it, then theoretically, like the model's not the hard part, like if you have all the data. But I assume that the hard part is like most of the quality data comes from invasive structures, and the amount of data you would need would be like a lot to be able to get.
yeah,
But
also
theoretically, if you
there
had
are some
that,
problems with sensing. The most sensing methods are very high impedance. So that there is like a signal to noise problem. Like even the signals we can collect, even invasively sometimes, have all sorts of problems. Sometimes if it's electrode based, it can lead to glial scarring, which can then not only be bad for the person sensing, but even if you want to keep sensing from that person's brain, it ends up destroying the signal to noise ratio.
mm,
There are also some novel approaches actually. There are some companies working at these. There's one called Synchron, where they insert stents, just like in angioplasties, like these stents that go into, I believe, the blood vessels of your brain or something. Um, I believe
okay,
this is all. Yeah, I don't want to get chastised for this. But yeah, it's stent based. They put the stent and then get intent from there. There's Axoff that does super biocompatible stuff. I read a paper not too long ago that was doing these organoid based brain computer
mm.
interfaces where they were basically culturing these organoids to be neuroconductive, and just
What's an
like it's
organoid?
just like a clump of cells. Think
Okay,
like just in a
oh,
wet
organoid.
lab.
Okay, like okay, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And then just put on top of your brain to get signals, and it seems to be
interesting.
working very well. It's also super biocompatible because it's just cells, and yeah, it seems more natural than inserting electrical components in your brain. Um, so yeah, there's so many problems we solved here. It is really exciting, and then of course we also don't have a complete theory of cognition yet. Like we just don't. Um, And I wonder if, like, by solving for brain computer interface, we get to learn about our brains even more.
You'd be
Like,
insane,
like
man.
through processing brain power. Like, it's not a foregone conclusion that we won't, but it'll be really exciting that we would if we do.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I'm really excited for that future.
Oh, I am too,
On
man. Yeah.
mass, I'm a supreme optimist, and yeah, I think it's highly likely that the future is going to be super awesome.
Yeah, honestly, I'm the same way. People always ask me like, "Why are you so optimistic all the time?" And sometimes I can't even defend it, but I just it's more of an internal state, where it's like, I mean, you look at history, like things up and downs happen, and there's always adjustment. There's the jobs we have today, no one could have even predicted 20 years from now, especially when people talk
Let,
about job
let me
market
respond to the
scarcity.
jobs thing. Let me
Yeah,
respond to the jobs thing because I've talked about a bunch of this with friends and people in my life, and the easiest meta principle to follow here is Jevons paradox, where it was basically this principle uh that was that this English economist came up with, which basically says that as it becomes easier to produce a high value good, the total value, or like the total demand of that good, does not go down, it goes up. Because it was valuable in the first place because of its raw utility. So if intelligence commodifies because of artificial intelligence, it unlocks so many more use cases. All the people who claim to be doomers, because AI is just gonna eat everything, are basically saying that we just have these finite set of use cases, that need to be solved. What they don't allow for is that the use cases themselves expand as
mm,
the capabilities expand, and these new uncharted territories make, as they get solved, create even more demand for intelligence. So it is my hypothesis that well, at least hopefully, that is almost always in a societal deficit, because we just find more use cases to put more intelligence at. And of course, if you go on the cosmic scale, like, the whole SpaceX thing,
Mm.
it's so easy to think we don't know anything about what's out there.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, why not put intelligence there?
I agree. I mean, there's so many use cases that like I can at least in the next 10 to 15 years you can like even come up with where I mean, solely in the next 10 years it's gonna definitely go through every existing industry. But 15 years from now, the most popular industries that we're gonna talk about are like, don't even really exist yet, which is kind of crazy to
Yeah,
think about. Because like I think about half the most popular industries today, like 50 years ago, the concept of them didn't even exist. And even if there's genuinely like this world with zero problems, which is impossible, then it just kind of allows for the fact that we can just do more harder stuff, like go explore the entire galaxy, or it's more of a simple way of thinking about it, but that's how you can kind of imagine it. There's always going to be problems, and as problems keep arising, there's always going to be solutions to problems in trade and economics, and this is a cycle that will keep going on where creative people come up with creative solutions, and create more problems and solve more problems, and then do more epic stuff in the world. So
yeah, my hunch is that AI is going to be a force for, like, not only increasing the ceiling of human experience, but also increasing the floor. I think on average, a smaller percentage of the population will be homeless. A smaller percentage of the population will have to rely on bad food to for sustenance, because as long as energy is not a constraint, which is plausible. I have not put too much thought on how energy dynamics play into this, but I'm pretty sure that solar is going to be super huge.
Mhm.
Fission and fusion are going to be super huge,
You
and
always find
and
new
they have,
ways.
yeah, exactly. And we're actually going to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels over the long run, because it's just so much more sustainable the other way around.
Mm.
Um, and also just super power efficient. So incentives explain outcomes. The outcomes are just byproducts of good incentives, and then we have all the incentives to move into a future that is cool, more prosperous, and raises the ceiling and the floor for human experience. So
Definitely, bro.
I cannot wait to be there.
Yeah, it's very exciting, and we're kind of living through it right now. And it's exciting because the capability of each individual human is just 10x all of a sudden. We're like, I mean, technically anyone can almost do anything. That is
Yeah,
in terms of a technical level, like anyone can learn
as
anything
long as
and build
it's physically
anything.
possible. Yeah, as long as it's
Yeah.
physically possible. Yeah, if, physics has become the all
Yeah.
be all.
Like really, like I know
And
people used to say this quote, like the only thing that limits you is the laws of physics. Like it's never been more true, I think. Where
yeah,
you can like
and we're just approaching the asymptotic ideal, like in transistors we've almost achieved that, right? Like, we have 3 nanometer transistors now. Like, we can't even conceive of
yeah,
what that
it's insane.
looks like, right? Like, beyond that, you just have like these quantum effects, just completely messing up signal conduction. But yeah, as long as we don't hit those, uh, we're basically as close to the laws of physics there as possible.
Yeah, and then we'll break the laws of physics too.
Yeah, yeah. Who says new laws cannot be discovered?
Yeah, dude. Never know. We'll see.
Yeah,
It's exciting.
yeah,
I'm curious, like, what are your current goals with Overlay then? Like, are you currently like trying to scale this product or build other things out, or what are you trying to do?
yeah. My goal is pretty simple. It is to give enterprises mass, like, just extreme control over their AI experience. AI is obviously gonna power a large part of the AI of the operations in an enterprise. It's already powering a lot of operations in enterprises today in San Francisco. It just needs to be diffused out to the rest of the enterprises in the world. And I think it should be done open source because, oh, apologies. Um, it should be done open source because, one, there is extreme incentive to do so, because people say, okay, I have a business today. If I make a product in-house, and if I do that using Anthropic or OpenAI models, I'm basically sending all my data to them,
Mm.
and they'll just come up with like a model that can just do my stuff. I'm just selling my alpha, and paying for it while I'm doing it. So it's like a double whammy. So I'm helping enterprises become self-reliant, maximize their agency on their own AI experience, and preserve their data on their own data lakes, and take ownership of what AI means and the extent of AI adoption in their enterprise. And they don't need to be they don't need to take my word for it, and they never have to trust or take my word for it because the source is available, and that they have the primitives to build on top of it. Um, so yeah, and then the same argument applies to individuals at large. I think local AI is going to be huge in the future.
Mm.
It will be hosted either on private servers that people individually own in their houses or their own personal computers, and this is all obviously going to be powered with the personal interface that is open source. So I kind of want to be there to help them do that, and then because think about it, right? Like the amount of abilities that a model exposes you to is directly constrained by the interface between you and the model. We didn't even like until recently we didn't even know that these models were like capable of good computer use, but they were.
Mm.
And just because the Codex IDE allows you to do very good computer use, it does do very good computer use. Um, so the interface is the constraining factor of true adoption of a technology. And I kind of want to be the best and the most open um, interface for people adopting AI,
Mm.
especially where it matters most in high regulation industries where privacy matters, where being vendor agnostic matters, where being Switzerland matters. Like you can have all the best solutions in one place and then just not have to worry about losing out uh, to other players. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man.
I cannot tell you how many people have told me like, oh, you know, uh, we have a medium to big size company. We signed a deal with Anthropic, and now every time a good GPT model comes out, we know there's an opportunity cost to not having that in our organization, and we
Mm.
can't just afford to pay double the subscriptions because we have no incentive to. So that's why these aggregator businesses win all the time, which is what I want to do. I just want to become the open standard for interfaces for AI for both enterprises and individuals.
Yeah, it's very smart, dude. Let's say the perfect world, where are you in December of 2026?
In a perfect world, when am I in December 2026? I have had deployed overlay in at least 100 organizations, and I have at least 20,000 monthly active users.
So
And
you're targeting both consumers and enterprises right now?
yeah, because it's super
Okay.
horizontal that the cloud hosted version is not only the interface that the consumers use, but also if an enterprise wants to adopt overlay on their own premises, they get a taste of what overlay can offer on the cloud
Mhm.
hosted version. Um, yeah, so only the GTM is the differing mechanism there, but like the product stays the same basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind
And
of, are you just targeting all size companies or a specific kind of size companies or a specific type of companies or
yeah, so currently I've just had a lot of inbound interest in education.
okay,
Uh,
interesting.
it just happened to happen. Like I did not expect that.
What do you mean by education? Like schools
Yeah,
or okay.
like primary to high schools.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
What are they looking for?
for because especially like in undersaturated markets like in India, they're looking for like obviously Anthropic and OpenAI are super expensive. An open source solution will be less expensive. They're also looking for a lot of these big companies, these big school groups obviously have like their own IT department that can host the software themselves and monitor it. They want control, especially with like sensitive data around children and students. They want that sort of data privacy, and they want to own that firsthand. So that seems to be a huge puller into open source solutions. I imagine this is a hypothesis that I haven't proven yet, but um, companies that want like even that want to design healthcare solutions or like law solutions or finance solutions, and anywhere where they're like the competitive advantage is in the knowledge within an organization. It is super obvious to me that an open source on-prem deployed
Mm,
solution is just much better than a cloud hosted SaaS where
yeah.
the data you're sending is directly to the person making the cloud hosted
Yeah, that
SaaS.
makes no sense for like a huge company. Like,
Yeah, you would think, right? You'd think
yeah,
it would be
there's
more
just like no
obvious.
options right now. It's
Yeah,
like shit. I gotta do this. No choice. It's too good.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So I think in that sense, the value proposition just writes itself. Um, and
Do you
that's what I
think
like
do you
about it.
think Anthropic and GPT are gonna jump on this opportunity and build kind of a product focused facing this way? Because I know a lot of people are trying, like, but no, it won't be their frontier model. But do you think they're? Because this is a huge like they're not. I mean, that's an argument you can make for any industry. Oh, they're gonna like just do it, but like it's not always true. But this seems like a really big opportunity that's going to be very smart for them to do. So I'm just curious. Like, I don't know if they've started or
Yeah, so
yeah.
both of them have some open source solutions that have become standards. Like the Codex engine itself, like the Codex harness is open source, not the desktop app. And Anthropic came up with the idea of the MCP, and they open sourced that and donated it to a foundation, I think. So they're obviously gonna go after these standards, but like, because they are one company building one series of models,
Mm,
they have every incentive to just you into their experience.
yeah.
It is the Apple model, right? It is even the Samsung model. Even though Samsung uses Android, it has a lot of its own native apps. It has Samsung Messages. It has Samsung note taking for like the note those note phones.
Mm,
It, it has Samsung cameras. Like Samsung cameras are extremely good. The screen is extremely good. So the
yeah.
experiences they offer around their models, like anything that is closed source has every incentive to keep it closed source, at least in an ecosystem. Um, yeah, which is why there have also been like open source hardware companies that allow you to make your hardware, like the
Interesting.
Le Robot thing. If you've looked at the Hugging Face Le Robot, they literally give you like the 3D components that you could 3D print and put into, and then get an Arduino chip and build your own robot.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so you don't have to buy the
Yeah.
hardware or the software or the chips from someone else and then just get locked into them. Because if you want to change a component of that robot, you could just 3D print a new component and
Mm,
just put it on the Le Robot and train it. You just can't do that in a proprietary system.
mm,
So like across all these industries, there has been extreme incentive, and it's not been captured by people inherently building open software or open hard. Sorry, it's Their incentives in every industry, they're not captured by people building closed source software or hardware. It is inherently done by people building open source software or hardware to make standards that become open source. Um, and the reason that has been the case is just because of there's just more incentive and there's more to gain
mm.
there than for these companies to do that.
Yeah,
Uh,
that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, yeah. And then
Interesting, man.
you can then make a recursive argument, and it would just be
Yeah.
turtles down the.
Yeah, I mean, you can philosophize forever, but at the end of the day, you
Yeah,
gotta just
there you go.
only way you can learn is by throwing things out there and seeing what happens. But
Hey man, yeah, a lot of it is
yeah,
just spray and pray.
yeah,
That's what I've also learned as part of being in a startup.
yeah. Also, just about life. Something I've been thinking about recently is that like every decision is defensible if you reframe it in a
Yeah,
certain way. So it's like the worst thing you can do is just not decide. So
yeah. And this made a lot of sense to me. Most companies get killed by their own actions much more often rather than a competitor coming out and killing them. When the onus of defensibility is in your hands, it is completely upon you to make your business defensible somehow.
mhm,
Um, and that is both a worrying and a freeing thing, because if something goes really well, you did it. If something goes really wrong, you're at fault.
mhm.
But you know having that sort of skin in the game is the way that people and companies win all the time. You just can't have one without the other,
Yeah,
which is a good thing. It's good that the universe is symmetrical in that way, that
yeah,
if you put your skin in the game, you have massive outsized outcomes. You also have a chance of succeeding pretty badly, of failing pretty badly.
yeah.
so, so yeah,
I
it
feel
turns
like
out.
there's no other way to think about it because nothing, no other perspective is actually valuable to you. Because if you feel like you don't have control of your actions, and it's like what do you even do with that information?
Exactly.
at the end of the day, like you're not gonna have an idea that nobody has, but it's all about survival of the fittest. Like who can actually like win? You know, that's
Yep.
how
Yep.
humans work, how tribes work, how meritocracy works, and it's the best way to do it because like unfortunately most people lose, but there's only way to like feel like you can actually have control over your outcomes, you know?
Turns out that like it's not even like the good thing about being a good winner is that you can also help people who don't win as much. The reason why big tribes become big is because the people who won in those tribes chose to help the person less powerful. Um, and there's this, and of course, I'm obviously making the argument for like, yes, you can optimize for merit, you can optimize for good outcomes, but if as a byproduct you can also optimize for collective well-being. Um, I, I I find that to be a very symmetrical, very just way of society,
Hmm.
and um, and if anything, that helps the winners win even bigger. Um, Imagine
Sorry,
I
finish.
no, no, imagine if like the reason why a lot of these the reason why a lot of billionaires become philanthropists, especially like the great institutions or the great libraries across the United States have been built by the Carnegies or the Morgans or whatever, um, was to uh, was to help, um, was to give back once they've earned more than uh, their wildest desires could afford.
Hmm.
Um, that just means a lot. That just makes a lot of sense to me.
No, I agree. And I think for the most part, like the way free market capitalism works is like often money does reward impact of society. Like it's not always perfect. Like there are cases where some people get money who did not impact or hurt society, but I think in the long run it stabilizes out to the people who have the biggest impact tend to have the most money. And I feel like it's shifting in the modern day because like I think that the objective impact like some of these bigger companies may have on people may be like reducing, but I think there's a huge shift to like startups now where like VCs are pouring money into people who are actually directly impacting lives. And if you think about the individual people that have changed the most lives, they tend to be entrepreneurs. They tend to be people that build products they cared about. And, I think I like to believe we live in a society where money is rewarded for people who impact. It's not always perfect,
Yeah.
but I think that it slowly does tend to move in that direction over time. So,
Yeah, put simply, money is just a corollary for an exchange of value. If I'm giving you money, I obviously value something you have to offer. And even though it's not, like even though it is not completely indicative all the time, a person who usually or like a company who usually has more money on their side, on average, builds products or services that more people use than a company that doesn't have as much money. That's just how the system ends up being.
mhm.
And there's also this conception that money is not going to matter in a few years, because if the production of goods and services because of AI uh massively massively
Increase standard of living.
yeah massively increases more than the money supply in the economy, then the net impact would be deflationary, not inflationary, and that the prices of things would go down. Like
Yeah, I've heard
imagine,
this argument. It's
yeah,
hard to conceptualize a society like that sometimes,
yeah,
but
like I can completely believe that, at least as long as like these discretionary desires are being completed in an automated way. um like imagine housing, which is like in a severe deficit right now. If we had robots building houses, and then if we had agentic systems just approving houses, so like the regulation part, which is a bottleneck, and then the building part, which is a bottleneck, could both be solved, I don't see why the prices of houses doesn't go down greatly.
yeah, just compare the standard of living now to 100 years ago. Like it's insane. Like all
Yeah,
of our like food, sanitation, like it's insane.
exactly.
Medicine.
And then you could make the argument that, like, then the demand of houses would get much greater, and I would agree with you, and then we would just be in a cyclical thing. But on average, I think,
The net
because,
improvement, yeah.
yeah, there's going to be a net improvement in the quality and the quantity of goods and services, and that it is likely that the concept of money is gonna well, money on average is gonna uh
Mm.
yeah, it's not gonna be as frequent.
Wait,
Um,
say the last part again. It's like, what do you think will happen to the value of money?
like I don't conceptualize us paying for air. Like, and we don't pay for um what else do we not pay for? We don't pay for air. We don't pay for you know uh, sitting in public places. Well, on average, I suppose you could argue that we pay taxes for those public parks. But my hunch is that if we can make goods and services fast enough that exceeds the the things people usually spend their money on, so money supply, um, it is going to be extremely hard to come up with an argument for spending a lot of money on anything that can be produced fast enough. Like you and I
Well, the
don't
price of things would go down, but you still spend money on them,
you
right?
would still spend money on it. On average, I think the prices of things are going to go down. I don't think the concept of money is going to be nullified, but more things are going to be free because they're just so easy to produce.
Like, what do you think the
Uh,
cost of like food and clothes will be 50 years from now? And like, just obviously it's not 100% true, but I'm just like just to understand your argument.
yeah, like I'm trying to think of things that are so cheap that we don't
I feel like
think
there's not that many of them, man.
like ketchup packets, right? Like these ketchup pouches. If they're 10 cents, right? Um,
Wait, but
they're
your meal will like cost $10 even if the ketchup packet is 10 cents, you
that
know?
is true. That is true. But I'm trying to think of like a single unit of product that is so cheap, that, because it's produced so fast, like so fast
Mm,
that like sometimes companies just
let me
charge
think.
it because there's cost associated with moving it. Right? Like ketchup pouches, like the average ketchup pouches, I think cost less than like 10 cents to make. But the moving cost and then the cost of like putting it on the counter and then being able to purchase it ends up being more than like maybe 50 cents or something. But if those go down even more, right? If those go down even more, then how are you going to charge for ketchup pouches? Many restaurants already give ketchup pouches for free.
Mhm.
So I think that that sort of argument can be applied to more things as they become easier to produce. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
I mean, like, if I mean, I guess we'll see because if even if we have a society where through agentic tools, robotics are making the production of houses super cheap, clothes super cheap, food super cheap, and distribution of them cheap, like the tooling that must power all this must be very expensive. And I just feel like the value of things may change, but there's always going to be this notion of money of like trading good of services. Like I just can't imagine a society that functions without this whole concept, you know?
yeah, so even if the infrastructure ends up being basically free, is what you're arguing. I would agree with you. The common denominator then becomes energy. But if imagine a
Okay.
world where you produce energy,
Because like clothes we can build really cheaply right now, but we still
yeah,
pay like 20, $30 or like whatever,
exactly, exactly, right? So what if energy becomes abundant in the sense that what if
like through some insane solar technique or whatever.
yeah, solar fission fusion, um, it becomes extremely cheap, right? Then it does become free. Which is why people who people who attach solar panels on top of their houses over time, they on average they sell electricity back to the grid,
Hmm.
and
Interesting.
electricity powering their houses becomes free,
Hmm.
right? So so if we can produce more energy basically for free, mostly by doing fission fusion and solar is just free energy, sun is just free energy. um I don't see why production becomes I don't see why production becomes so efficient and so cost effective that even if most products don't become free, they greatly decrease in price.
Hmm. So are you saying we move toward more of like a society where it's kind of like universal basic income kind of, or
Yeah,
is
like
that what
you,
you're proposing?
yeah, I think Elon says something about universal high income, that if energy
Yeah.
is abundant enough, right? Like everyone has a universally high income where the floor of human existence
What happens to typical like careers and things like that? Like how would that work if there's genuinely, let's say, a true abundance of resources through automated means?
Mhm.
Like what how does the concept of like society work in terms of, you know, competition, trade?
It's going to be extremely interesting. I wish I
It's
had
hard
a
to
better.
say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be. I don't think we're ready for that. I don't like on an economic level. on a political level, on like even like a social level, no one is ready for the total commodification of goods and services to a point where everyone can afford it. But on
It's
average, I
like
think,
scary because like we've known historically like similar kind of structure societies don't work, you know.
yeah, yeah, like there
And
has to be,
nothing has worked as beautifully as free market capitalism, you know.
yeah,
And
there has to be an element of scarcity of something to drive markets upwards, I think. But I truly, it it boggles the mind to think of, in a truly abundant society, how market society
mhm.
and economics would function.
Because even if you just downstream think about the idea of status and you think about the idea of like that it's needed, I feel like, for society to work in this way. Like competition is needed in a way to like mentally function, I feel like, or like some level of society. Like I'm not super big in the behavioral economics and things, so I'm kind of just yapping, but at least
Yeah.
intuitively when I think about like these kind of things, it's I feel like a lot of pieces of the puzzle that we wouldn't think about start to kind of fall out and it's like wait, things start to break in a way.
Yeah, I think we're right at the point where, like, I think even like we would just need more data to make better predictions. Even if I could, even if I would want to, I would refuse to, because there's just no way I could make a calculated guess on
Mhm.
on where that goes.
Like I know previously you made the argument that jobs are not going to go away and that there's still going to be like this need for people and
Yeah,
to the
like
arc
like
of history. Like I feel like something similar will kind of apply here where like a news kind of scarcity comes and
yeah,
that
like
kind
like
of yeah.
we achieve new use cases where that scarcity applies. But on average, like at least like less people die of infant mortality today
Yeah,
than ever,
100%. Yeah.
or less people die of at least lesser percentage of people die of terminal diseases. Well, I don't know if that's true, but no, I'm hoping that's
I think
true.
it is true. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Today than every day, than even 50 years before. So the floor keeps increasing. And once the floor increases enough, where all our discretionary needs are met. If you've seen like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I just threw I just threw a sign there. But yeah, like that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, as the discretionary needs get fulfilled, you just sort of go above those needs and be like, okay,
Mhm.
intellectual needs, social status needs, whatever, whatever. Um, yeah, I think we'll be able to find bigger and better needs, but the floor is definitely gonna go upwards, which is
Yeah, man.
a
It's
good.
exciting, bro. I mean, we'll see. A
There you
lot of
go.
change in the next 100 years of our life, so
Amen. Amen to
yeah,
that.
we'll see
Uh,
where it goes.
yeah, perfect.
Awesome, man.
This is a great segment to sort of leave the audience pondering, because even like I don't think we can top this in
Yeah, this
whatever
is good.
we discuss
Unless we
next.
come back 10 years from now and then we
Exactly.
reflect on
Yeah,
a
you should have me on exactly 10 years from now, and we reflect on the predictions made.
long time. I'll try to
Done.
remember. Put a Google Calendar reminder
Google
for 10.
Calendar. Yeah, exactly.
Unless all the jobs are gone over in UBI and then Google Calendar is I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, if Google stays in business by then. Okay.
Yeah, Google's probably falling off. Awesome.
Well,
Well, thanks for your time, bro. This is a lot of fun. Um,
thank you so much, Shaurya. This is awesome.
enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll probably see you late at night at Corgi or something.
Exactly. Yeah, let's see you at Corgi super, super soon. And to everyone listening, take care. Thank you.
Awesome. See you, bro.
See you, man.